Hey guys, we are back with the latest and greatest NECA Predator figure, and this is a big one. This is a special release. This is a very important one as far as the line goes, and then for NECA themselves. We are taking a look at the special edition 100th Predator figure. This is their kind of own creation figure, the Alpha Predator, the kind of beginning of all the Predators as far as the lore goes. This guy is going to be kind of like the biggest and baddest as far as the original Predators, and the one that sort of sets the scene for the rest of the species as they come along. So this one's pretty cool. I've really been looking forward to this one ever since they first showed him off. So we've got him here, of course, in a standard Ultimate style box. So you've got the fantastic artwork here. This is some Jason Edmiston artwork of the Predator. You've got the logo that runs down the spine, and then the back of the box has got a bunch of awesome product shots. But since this is an Ultimate style package, you've of course got the flap. Pop that open, you've got a shot of him there on the inside, and then you've got the figure there in the big window. So great presentation as always, and then as a little extra thing on the back, you've actually got a bio that explains who this guy is, which I really like that touch. Adds a little something extra to this figure. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here he is out of the package, our Alpha Predator. So I think it goes without saying this guy has been at the top of most Predator fans' wants lists for a very long time, because there is just so much going on here. It looks fantastic. It is the special 100th release for NECA. It's a very original design that has a lot of tributes and homages in its design, and that it has a pretty interesting place in the overall Predator backstory. So there's a lot going on here. As a toy, I'd say we have probably the best Predator, objectively speaking, that NECA has ever made. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say it's my favorite of all time, because there's a lot of nostalgia for me with Predator stuff, but as far as the toy goes, there is a lot of stuff to beat here if you're going to be a better figure, because NECA kind of pulled out all the stops on this guy. He's large. He's not huge, but he's large, and he has great articulation. He's got a ton of accessories, and I mean, let's be honest, he has got the gnarliest look that we have seen on a Predator figure in a very, very, very long time. So this guy is something else. So let's take a look, see what he can do. As far as moving him around, you're probably not going to be too surprised. There's a lot of familiar territory here, but that's not a negative. So we've got a head that can look up, and he can look down a little bit. You do have a little tilt side to side, and then there is a rotation. His dreads actually go through a backpack of sorts on his back here, so they do get kind of caught in there a little bit. They don't necessarily stop him, but you're going to feel them get a little taut, I suppose. The arms go out at the shoulders. They rotate. You do have your upper elbow swivel, you've got your lower elbow swivel as well, and then you've got that double elbow kind of pinless system that NECA does with Predators. We've got rotation, and you've got hinges at the wrist, so this guy has a big gauntlet here, which kind of makes it hard to show, but there is a hinge on both wrists for each side, and then you've got full rotation, so pretty normal stuff there. We do have our torso cut, so he goes sideways pretty good. And then you've got good tilt on this guy. He goes backwards in conjunction with his ball peg waist a little bit, and then you can tilt it forwards as well. The legs go out pretty far. There are, of course, a few rubbery pieces to deal with. So you've got the thigh pads and you've got the crotch piece, and then they kick forward pretty much all the way. They kick backwards a little bit. There is a thigh cut integrated at that hip, and then you've got your double jointed knees. They go all the way back, so no issues there. And then you've got rotation at the top of the knee. You've got ball pegs at the ankles, so full rotation, and then you've got some tilt, actually better than you might expect. Pretty good tilt there, and then basically full rocker action as well. So he's still pretty standard territory when it comes to Predator stuff, at least as far as the more recent releases, but he does move really well. I've had no true issues posing him or anything like that. A lot of his armor is rubbery, and that's very good, especially in the torso, because if this was really rigid plastic, it would basically lock him in that cage, but it does bend and it does give when you move him around. So he's got a lot of stuff on him. There is a lot of armor on this figure, but it doesn't really hinder him too much, and he looks fantastic in just about every pose you can throw him in, and it's very easy to do it. No heat was necessary on my figure. I haven't had to do anything special to make this guy move, which is always a welcome addition. Now, articulation aside, you likely know, if you have any familiarity with my reviews, what I care about most when it comes to my toys, and it's the look, it's the aesthetic, and to say this thing is just the coolest looking Predator we've had in a long time is really an understatement, because there is so much stuff going on here. So for maybe the unfamiliar, this guy is again the 100th Predator, and it is a tribute in sorts to the original Predator design. So we'll talk more about that when we get to the helmet for this figure, but a lot of this is based on the idea of that original Predator suit that never made it into the film. The Predator that Jean-Claude Van Damme was going to play in the original movie. Very different design, would have made for a very different movie, but it translates really interestingly into this particular figure. So this guy is supposed to be the original Predator that we know in the Predator lore. He is one of the Hish that became the Predators and kind of rebelled against a specific race that had enslaved them called the Amengi. He is wearing the Amengi as an armor suit. So he basically, leads the rebellion. He helps destroy their enslavers, and then he takes one of them as a trophy and makes armor out of it because they're big, hulking insectoid creatures. So he's got their exoskeleton on him. There's a lot of very obvious design choices when it comes to that. So you've got, like the carapace for the backpack, for the shoulders, for the chest piece. He's got the jaws and the head for his gauntlets. So you've got this head right here, or this gauntlet here is like the top, and then this is the bottom jaw for one of them over here on the right. He's got a bone kind of a belt here, and then you've just got all very primitive looking Predator type of things. There's no technology on this guy. He's like a Predator caveman, really. I suppose it's the best way to think about it, because he's so far in the past from what we're used to seeing in comics, and then in the movies, and then of course in the toy line. So the design here is very different, but it's also still very familiar at the same time. You just don't have a lot of those Predator hallmarks. Like there's no netting on him. He doesn't have a plasma caster. He doesn't have any of that kind of stuff. But you can see, he's still got weaponry on his wrist. He's got an extending blade over here on his wrist, which is really cool. So this guy kind of pops onto this peg right here, and then it will move up and down the arm, which is really cool. It also has another attachment that we'll talk about. And then he does have kind of a Telltale Predator backpack back there, but it doesn't have any kind of gun or anything. It's just a lot of bones and exoskeleton, which is really cool. He's got a hide on him for a loincloth, and it's just a nice looking design. It's very familiar territory, while at the same time being so different. And to say that this thing is expertly crafted and expertly sculpted, painted, is still another understatement, because there is so much paint on this guy, so much stuff that is unique to this figure. It's just crazy to see all of this stuff in one place. And I think NECA did the best job they probably could have on this figure. I think they pulled out all the stops when it comes to making this guy special, and they absolutely succeeded. There's really nothing here that I would want to see change, because there's so much cool stuff with this figure. Again, familiar territory, but done up in a very different way. I can't get over the jaw situation here for this particular gauntlet. It's just so cool. It makes perfect sense, but at the same time, it's so different. The same with this guy. This is actually a removable piece. So you've got the top of a head with some spine sticking out of it. So very Predator trophy thing, but then he's fashioned it into a weapon, which is just awesome. Tons of paint on him. He's covered in a pearlescent white sheen, so it brings out a lot of the sculpt, because again, there's no netting on this guy to bring out a lot of the sculpt. This guy has actual skin tone and the metallic nature of his skin to bring out all of that crazy sculpt work. So there's just a lot to take in. There's likely more stuff that I haven't noticed, little things here and there, but there is a lot of cool things on this figure that definitely set him apart from the rest of the clan. And then of course we've got this really different head sculpt up here that has, again, a very different way to do the dreads. So we've got what is really a quite massive head sculpt on this guy. It does seem to be a little bit larger than normal. It is very much shiny and pearlescent. There's a lot of paint on this guy, a lot of little brown hues, little yellow specks all over, and then he's got that kind of inner mouth almost, and then the mandibles on the outside, which also look a little bit primitive. They look a little bit more gruesome in some ways than your average Predator. So I think he looks fantastic. The dreads on him look really nice. A lot of metallic blues and pinks in there. And then, like I mentioned, he does have a little bit more in the way of his dreadlocks on the back. So they actually feed through this backpack, and they go down almost to his butt down there. So there's a lot of plastic here. He's got them done up in braids, a lot of loose ones, and then a bunch that stick through that backpack just to show exactly how much he has. So I don't know if this is a figure that I'm going to use the helmet on, honestly, because I'm really happy with this head sculpt, and that's not all that common for me. Usually I'm a helmet only guy, but this thing looks almost too good to cover with that helmet, although that helmet is a huge selling point for this figure. Now, as far as accessories goes, this guy is absolutely loaded. He is jam-packed with accessories, and some of them have extra features. They have a couple dual options in terms of how you use them. The big thing, though, well, not literally, but as far as design, is definitely the mask, so the helmet for this figure. And again, this is taken very, very much from that original Predator design that looks nothing like what we know Predators to look like. So this mask right here is basically the head of what the original Predator design was going to look like, and it looks really cool. I mean, it's a big insectoid thing, and it's just so different. So it's basically the head of one of the Amengi that the Alpha here has taken and forged into his own mask. It sits really interestingly. It basically just sits over top of the face. It kind of takes a minute to figure out how to get it to sit correctly, and it will kind of clasp on there around his mandibles, and you can see I'm actually having a little bit of a trouble, but there you go, and you can see it sits on his face. So it might take a little bit of a learning curve to actually make it work for you, but once it's there, it seems to sit pretty well. It's all about the design, though. I mean, it looks so different. It makes him look even more menacing, if that's really possible. So we've got that big guy right there. We've got a couple of extra attachments for the figures. So we've got some of these big bone spikes that you can use for him. And if you've noticed, there are some on his back already, and there are a couple ports. So you've got a spot right here to put one, and then there's actually a little piece that you can stick one in over here, and then you can have them sticking out of his back. Of course, you could swap them around and have them maybe pointing outward if you want, but he's also got a spot on his gauntlet here. So there is a little nub right here. It's a bone, but inside of it is a hole, and you can pop this guy in there, and then you can give him an even more menacing gauntlet weapon right there. So that's also a way to just change him up a little bit. We've got this bone sickle, which actually does fit in the little loop on his bone belt here. There's a lot of bone motif going on with this figure. So you've got this guy here, which has a little bit of blood on it, and it's done up in kind of a bony color with some wraps on it. Then we've got what would be kind of like the smart disc for this figure, but of course there's no tech on this guy. So he's got like a bone starfish. I don't know what's going on with the design here, but I'm all for it because this is wacky and stupid and weird, but it works really well, and it's one of those things where I guess this makes sense in the context of where this thing comes from in the timeline, that sure, he's going to throw something and it's going to be made of some sort of primitive material, so in this case, more bone. And then we've got his literal big accessory, his monstrous, monstrous staff here, which has a lot of more, you guessed it, bone work. So there's a spine that runs up and down it, and then the handle is made of more bones, and then you've got jaw bones that make up the actual blades, and there's some blood splatter on that as well. So he is really armed to the teeth. There is just a ton of stuff with this guy. I mean, I can't get over how cool this thing is, and again, it's actually taller slightly than the figure itself. And then, so he can hold some of those, we do have extra hands. So he's got style pose hands out of the box. You do have a set of fists, pretty standard for Predators, and then we have got a singular gripping hand, and then you've got a slightly style pose gripping hand, which works a little bit better with the Predator starfish guy right there, but he can also use it to hold in two hands the staff. So he does have a lot of stuff, but being a special figure, he also does come with a few little extra things too. So to start with, we've got this guy here. So we've got a bonus pack-in, and I don't know how long this is going to be in the box, but for the Predator Hunting Grounds game, you get a exclusive code for this guy's skin in the game for PS4. I haven't gotten this game yet. I'm planning to, I just haven't still, so I'm very interested in this. And then what is maybe my favorite aspect of this thing is this guy here. So this is kind of his bio sheet for everything about him. So it tells you where he comes from, tells you the backstory of the Hish, of the Amengi, and it also gives you his specific name, which is, I think it's supposed to be pronounced Kale, the first hunter. So that is just really cool on its own. And then we've also got one last thing, which is also very cool. So we've got this big guy here, and I'm going to move him out of the way for a second. So we've got a big poster with the box art done by Jason Edmiston, but then on the inside, well, the backside, you've got a shot of all of the Predators that NECA has released. So all the stuff that have had the Predator name on the package, and you can get an idea of just how many toys we're talking about. So I don't know, I think I'm actually going to hang this up, but I'm just not sure which side to go. But I mean, you've got a lot of accessories for the figure itself, and then I love little bonus pack-ins like this. I really dig the little bio card backstory thing in particular. And because this guy is so different, but still so very similar. We have to talk about sizing, because I don't know if a lot of folks understand exactly how big he is. He's not humongous. You know, he's not assassin predator size. That guy is still, you know, a couple inches taller. But as far as more normal predators go, here he is with my still favorite predator from the entire line, the Kenner Tribute Clan Leader. And you can see he's still just a smidge taller. They're very, very similar in terms of their overall size, but the Alpha is just a little bit smaller. And then this is the Mad Predator from the recent arcade line. This is a more standard figure, and you can see that they're still really close. He has a little bit more, you know, bulk and just a little bit more height on him. A lot of it from that head sculpt, but there is just a little bit of a comparison between Predators and this guy. And then we've got maybe a few other things from other lines. So let's pull the Clan Leader aside. Here he is with Snake Eyes. You can see he's very much dwarfed by the Alpha here. Mando is also very much dwarfed by him. Let's get him to stand up there. And then we've got, let's see, something else, a Mythic Legions figure. So we've got a Mythic Legion skeleton. So a 7-inch style figure, and you can see that he's still quite a bit smaller than our Predator here. And then maybe something else that's very similar to the Mythic Legions. We've got the recent Toxie figure from Super 7. So you can get an idea of various things. I mean, this guy will fit in really well, I think, with Mythic Legions as a more hulking beast type of figure. He fits in really well with Predators of various styles. And then he very much has a tremendous amount of size over your Marvel Legends, your Star Wars Black Series, your G.I. Joe, pretty much any normal 6-inch Hasbro stuff. So he's going to scale really well to being that big monstrous beast Predator that will look really nice fighting all of your Hasbro good guys. So, yeah, I mean, if you're a Predator fan, this is one to get. Unless you're strictly maybe a comic-only person or a movie-only person, this is objectively, I think, the best Predator that NECA has ever made. It's got everything they've ever done correct shoved into one figure. Articulation is great. The design, the sculpt, the paint is just, I mean, unmatched when it comes to this particular figure. And then the overall idea, the special nature of this figure. If you're a collector of this line, this really is the must-have figure right now, because he means a lot to the line in general, and he does have a really cool backstory, and that's something that means a lot to me, because I like my figures to actually have some sort of a bio or have some sort of place along the other figures on the shelf. And this guy definitely means something. He should really be kind of at the top or the front of your collection, because he is the Predator for all the other Predators. And I think NECA did this particular design just a great service, and they did a fantastic job here. There's no reason to not get this guy if you are in any way a fan of this line. So that's going to do it for this look at the NECA Toys Alpha Predator. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.